Iris Marie Bloom.
And your organization is?
Protecting Our Waters. And we also are part of a statewide network calling for a moratorium in Pennsylvania, and that is Pennsylvanians for Clean Land, Air, and Water, PA CLAW.
What is the mission of Protecting Our Water?
The mission is to champion the health and lives of the people of Pennsylvania by challenging all phases of high-volume hydraulic fracturing from beginning to end. That means the drilling, the extraction, the processing, the use, the clearing of land, all of it. It's all bad news.
It's all bad news. And just give me, it's bad news because...
Well, it's bad news because, first of all, there are known dangers. The known dangers include severe air pollution. The air in Sublette County, Wyoming, has become as bad as the worst smog in Los Angeles on a summer day. That's crazy. That's insane. We have some good air left in Pennsylvania. Why frack it up? So air is a huge issue. Water is a huge issue. Surface water, groundwater, ponds, streams, high value, incredibly, exceptionally beautiful and cold trout streams are all being put at risk. Ponds and streams have dried up already in western Pennsylvania.
Wow.
There are many families in Pennsylvania right now living in a state of emergency because their water supplies have been contaminated beyond remediation.
Do you have a feel for how many?
I believe that there may be hundreds. I know of dozens. And I have heard of 60 in one county alone. That's Bradford County, where the methane migration is extreme and rampant.
And why don't we know the exact number?
Because, number one, the families that are suing, there's no way to even find out that those suits are happening unless you go to the courthouse in each tiny little town of the entire state of Pennsylvania, which has 67 counties, by the way, and 2/3 are underlain by shale. So unless it hits the headlines, you don't know it's happening. And I can tell you because I've been on the ground in 6 different counties where there are contaminated water incidents. And in Butler County, there's 10 families heavily impacted by contaminated water. In the Woodlands, Connequin Township, Butler County, their water turned black. Some people's water turned red. Some people had ammonia, T-butyl alcohol, acetone, chloromethane, and arsenic, all spiking, as well as high levels of manganese and lead, which you don't want to drink at a high spike. So they don't have safe drinking water, and this wasn't in any headlines anywhere. And in fact, it was only really my work in collaboration with Marcellus Outreach Butler on the ground there to break that story over and over and over and over again. And after breaking it about 10 times, it started getting into the press and television, Pittsburgh Press, AP, national, international press. Next thing you know, it's being reported in Kuwait. But that's the way the news goes. You have a little headline, and these families are poor, so they can't afford lawyers. They're not like the families in Dimmock, which are relatively affluent compared to them. So when it's poor families, it's even less likely that it's going to make it into the headlines at all unless you have tens of thousands of advocates, which is what we need.
But also, sometimes, like with the Hallowiches, court sealed the records and forced them to sign non-disclosure agreements, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge problem with secrecy. This industry has toxic secrets from beginning to end. And the 3 forms of medical secrecy that we're most outraged about are the medical secrecy that is compelled by the Halliburton loophole, which abolishes the community right to know what kind of chemicals are being used, and the HB 1950, which is the new law in Pennsylvania, which is criminally undermining of public health. It violates medical ethics because it requires doctors to sign a confidentiality agreement that they will not tell even their colleagues in the same medical practice, let alone the general public, when they treat a patient that has been exposed to particular chemicals that the company reveals to them were used in their fracking. So it's an incredibly outrageous requirement. That's a toxic secret. And then thirdly, like you said, the non-disclosure clauses are being signed where families are forced. They're forced because of their financial status. When they have medical impacts like Stacey Haney and Beth Voles and their families in southwestern PA, like Laura Amos in Colorado, cluster after cluster of families that have neurological impacts, the more severe the impacts, the more likely it is that the non-disclosure clause is going to be signed because they are desperate for medical care. And when the company agrees to pay their doctor bills, they sign them, they force a gag order on them, and that's criminal.
And Energy has a proposal for a major expansion of this LPG and maybe even liquefied natural gas. The community wrote to the DEC and said we need an impact assessment. Like Energy just completed the impact study and they asked the DEC, we want to keep this secret. So, and the industry always says this is safe. If it's true, why do they need all the secrecy?
Well, first of all, when you talk about LNG, which, by the way, they're trying to build an LNG export facility on the Chesapeake Bay right now. And so that's where a lot of this gas is going because the prices are so much better in Asia and Europe, so much better. So given profit motive,
it's like triple or four times.
That's what they're going to do. Yeah. So if you even forget about everything else, exploding pipelines, injured workers, all the emission, the methane emissions, and combined with the diesel emissions, by the time you ship this stuff overseas, the impact on climate has escalated. And methane is actually, there's a scientific consensus on this, 100 times more potent than carbon dioxide in the 20-year time frame. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about death for climate. We are in a crisis, a planetary crisis. And this is like having a huge fire and then throwing more fuel on the fire instead of water to put it out.
So you were, I saw you standing up and you were speaking out today. So were you prepared to go to jail?
Yeah, I had to go get my $100 bail money last night. I had to give my emergency contact information. I had to prepare my round-the-clock dog care for my old dog, do all those practical things so that I would be free to go to jail and have my freedom taken away so that I can protect the Susquehanna River Basin and all the states of the Marcellus Shale.
So I know that there's I've been hearing more civil disobedience trainings going on, and more people are preparing themselves. So why is it so important I mean, what about voting? What about petitions?
We have been doing it all. We have been doing it all. We have been generating tens of thousands of email comments, written comments. We've been going to hearing after hearing after hearing for 3 years, testifying in person. We have been generating phone call campaigns. I personally wrote the alert to call the 3 governors and the president for the SRBC water withdrawal approvals to oppose that. I made all those calls. We've all made all those calls. And there's a tremendous outpouring. We're doing every form of legal protest. And yet this foul and toxic industry is escalating. And therefore, we are compelled to do civil disobedience and to take direct action in order to stop it. It's our moral responsibility.
So, so it's part of the democratic process then.
It's as American as apple pie.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Iris. Thank you for everything you're doing. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.